Who Shan's hat has fallen for 1,000 years, human relationships and current events are half sad and joyful. I am Hu Huan, an old fox of 700 or 800 years old. I have seen the Franciscans chop down the Queen, participated in the European Revolution, worked as a pirate during the Age of Discovery, opened a factory during the steam engine age, and sponsored the most accomplished artist of the 18th century. Now keywords of the novel. Xianhu no pop-ups, Xianhu TXT complete collection download, Xianhu latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Diary of the Demon Fox, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Diary of the Demon Fox, 1, on May 4, 1919, sunny, a house caught fire outside the window. What a coincidence. This is my 70,000th diary entry. I have been sticking to this boring habit for 200 years. Today, the sun is bright and the wind is sunny. Outside the window, there are passionate young people trying to change this country. It's just a moment to recall some of their long lives. I am a fox that is 700 or 800 years old, in a biological sense. When I was a child, I was picked up by a fairy because I was cute. My master fed me a lot of spiritual pills and taught me many cultivation methods, so when I was 16 or 17 years old, I successfully cultivated into a demon fox. I still remember the day when I successfully transformed into a handsome young man. The owner said, "This looks too old." He forced me to swallow the returning old staying yen pill and transform into a simple and honest boy of 11 or 12 years old. That night, the owner regretted it again, thinking that his appearance was too foolish. He used the technique of easy tendons and bones to mature me once, and changed my appearance to 27 or 8 years old. He was as charming as a jade prince. The master had a flower obsession with me all night, and the next day he felt that I wasn't fresh enough. I am already the first fox of 17 or 18 years old. According to normal fox breeding, I should have had a nest of descendants to become an old prince long ago. How could it still be fresh? At most, I can change my appearance 7 or 8 times a day. After playing for half a month, the master resentfully taught me a set of martial arts techniques, saying that once I mastered them, I could change my appearance freely without having to expend any magic. She asked me to be a self-moving demon pet. Isn't it that I like to change and change? After being demonized, appearance will not be easy for thousands of years. I was still very happy at the time. Those who knew the art of change were all top-notch demons, thinking that I would be a unique demon. I have worked hard to train this set of spells, and it has been over 200 years now. I eagerly went to find my master and wanted to demonstrate the Tian transformation technique to her. But the master said she was about to soar and left all her treasures, Taoist scriptures, and even the cave to me. Then the master carried wave after wave of thunder tribulations, leaving the shattered void without returning. In my year, I was 275 years old. I first realized what sadness is. I have not left my master's cave for over 100 years. Of course, Snail cave is already my cave. The master gave it to me. If nothing unexpected happens, I will continue to stay in the small snail cave until I reach the ground and soar. At the age of 400, the whole world began to go wrong. The spiritual machine of heaven and earth is becoming thinner and thinner, but the impurities are increasing. Often, practicing for more than 10 days is not worth half a day. I can still tolerate this situation. But the situation quickly worsened, and it was no longer a problem of too little profit from cultivation. My martial arts began to decline, and the more diligent I practiced, the more my martial arts declined. The decline of martial arts is not the biggest problem. The increasingly strong various impurities in the world not only hinder cultivation, but also cause various distortions in the physical body. After enduring for decades, I finally couldn't bear it anymore and had to go down the mountain to find the reason for the great change in heaven and earth. I only realized after going down the mountain that the world has changed so much that it is unimaginable. Originally, it was a change of dynasties, with the Tang dynasty becoming the Song dynasty and the Song dynasty becoming the Ming dynasty. Although I haven't seen the Tang dynasty, I'm not old enough, and everyone is still the same, there's not much difference. This world suddenly began something called the Industrial Revolution. Humanity has actually begun to create magic weapons. Some treasures can automatically weave fabrics, some treasures can drive machinery to walk, some treasures can transmit messages from thousands of miles, some treasures can spray flames from a thin pipe, and some treasures can observe the 9 chens and the great micro from above. This is also too scary. I infiltrate into humanity, learn their knowledge, try to be a factory owner myself, purchase cargo ships, and open up estates. After spending decades, I finally understood human technology and also realized that human changes are only qualitative changes in the accumulation of civilization to a certain level, and will not interfere with the vitality of heaven and earth. It is not the change in the vitality of heaven and earth that triggered the progress of human civilization, nor is it the decline of spiritual energy caused by the Industrial Revolution of humanity, and there is no connection between the two. I thought I couldn't find the truth, but after feeling sad for a while, I accepted my fate. As a fox, I have lived long enough. But at this moment, I met them. They call themselves the 3 Saints of Taiping and are practitioners like me. The 3 saints claim that they have found the truth about the changes in the vitality of heaven and earth. These 3 guys believe that the vitality of heaven and earth is like a tide, changing in cycles over thousands of years. They firmly believe that ancient cultivation methods are destined to be eliminated, and that a new cultivation method must be established in order to continue to possess extraordinary power. I tried the heavenly performance technique created by the 3 saints of Taiping, and it was indeed remarkable. Therefore, I joined them and assisted them in establishing the Taiping Heavenly Soldier, becoming one of the 13 elders of the Heavenly Soldier. The Taiping Heavenly Soldiers have absorbed numerous members, including humans, monsters, those who inexplicably acquire strange abilities, and some small devils with their influence spread across the 5 continents. Although many members also believe that a new law must be established, they do not agree with the Tian art established by the Taiping 3 Saints. They have their own ideas for the new path. During that period, research on new practices was extremely popular, and countless creative ideas were proposed. At least 140 new practices were established worldwide. That was the period when Taiping Heavenly Soldiers developed the fastest, and I was also the most active. I almost participated in the establishment of all new laws, and even for projects that I didn't think were promising, I would provide funding to support the new laws, which almost exhausted the wealth I had accumulated after going down the mountain. The movement to establish a new law lasted for over 100 years and gradually came to an end. More than 90 new laws have been proven to be completely impractical, while over 30 new laws have been proven to be harmful or have low potential. Only 12 new laws have infinite potential. The 12 new laws have 7 Dharma sects, and I participated in their establishment. I have also attempted to practice the other 5. The practice of the new law has gradually made me doubt the theory of heavenly weapons. I feel that heaven and earth are still the same, and there is no tide in the vitality. There is a strange yet incredibly powerful existence that blocks the source and pollutes the vitality of heaven and earth. I even vaguely sense that existence. He is even larger than the solar system, perhaps even larger than the Milky Way, and his true body is hidden in a higher dimension, a spacetime that is much higher than Earth. Perhaps he was just passing by, or perhaps he just accidentally moved his body, blocking a mysterious passage and cutting off the spiritual energy that had already poured out, which was almost impossible. The above is just speculation, but there is one thing that I am very certain of. The Earth never gives birth to any spiritual energy, all of its spiritual energy comes from another space. This is not my opinion. My master has told me that the space is called the spiritual sky domain, and it is also a place that all practitioners will inevitably go to when they reach the ultimate level of cultivation. If I guess the truth of the world, then the ascending master may be very dangerous. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Diary of the Demon Fox, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Diary of the Demon Fox, 2. On January 24, 1949, it was sunny and the war was raging. It was advisable to buy a house. Given that this country is about to undergo significant social changes and many people are selling their properties, it is not as cheap as a foot wash basin. Therefore, I bought hundreds of properties in Beijing and Shanghai. I also predict that there will be significant changes in this country, and personal property may disappear. Therefore, I did not use my personal name and temporarily established a group of folk organizations, such as the Beiping Toad Spirit Folk Research Association, Yanqing District Vegetable Chicken Association, Mian Fruit and Vegetable Association, Shanghai Cultural and Historical Research Association, Beijing Shanghai Banana Enthusiast Association. All of which are relatively safe identities used to purchase real estate. Anyway, the house is cheap at the moment, and even if this deal is all discounted, there won't be much money. 30 years ago, the heavenly soldiers caused an internal turmoil, resulting in many deaths. Many old friends turned against each other, and everyone began to be wary of each other. Everyone learned to stay hidden and keep their movements hidden. I haven't seen anyone from the heavenly soldiers for a long time. There are many reasons for internal turmoil. The deepest root is the 12 new laws. The cultivation of the classical school is divided into 4 stages. The mortal realm, the true Qi realm, the vigorous and evil realm, and the divine realm. The new method is divided into 10 levels. The 0 level corresponds to the mortal realm, the 1st to 3rd levels correspond to the true Qi realm, the 4th to 6th levels correspond to the vigorous Qi realm, and the 7th to 9th levels correspond to the divine realm. Due to the decline of the vitality of heaven and earth, as well as the pollution of impurities, 50 years ago, no one's ancient cultivation level could be maintained above the Gang Sha realm. My ancient cultivation level was also the same, and I had long retreated to the true Qi realm. The cultivation level of the true Qi realm is no longer sufficient to sustain the continuation of one's lifespan. The practice of new laws cannot be achieved overnight. The 13 elders of the Taiping heavenly soldiers, including the 3 saints of Taiping, myself, and the rising stars who claim to be geniuses, can only reach the 2nd level in the cultivation of the new law. In other words, no one on earth can sustain immortal life anymore. Originally, this was not a big deal, isn't it just that we can't grow? It's fair that everyone is equally forbidden to live forever. Unfortunately, there is one of the 12 new methods called the Yushan method. The ancient method's true Qi state cannot be reborn, while the new method is below the 4th level and has limited impact on lifespan. However, the Yushan method can preserve life. It's about preserving life, not about longevity. What is the difference between preserving life and longevity? For many people, this is all about longevity. The ghost god technique requires sacrificing 2 true Qi realms or individuals with a 2nd level or higher new cultivation level to be refined. Let's start by hunting other people. Hunt for the strong who, for various reasons, are unwilling to join the Taiping heavenly army. Later on, it evolved into internal strife that was a painful history. Time changes, things change and people change. All old antiques and decay should be swept into the garbage dump. This world, this country, needs a new day. On January 24, 1975, sunny, suitable for marriage. Attended the wedding of 2 old friends. In fact, it's an old friend's wedding, and only the bride is my old friend. I know the groom, but he's not very familiar, so let's consider him a friend. The 2 of them are almost 500 years old together. When they were young, they didn't know how to cherish each other, and even after falling out countless times, they are now too old to see each other, and finally decided to be together. There are a total of 5 old friends who came to attend, including me. We haven't seen each other for 30 or 40 years. Everyone sighed heavily. May 5, 1978, sunny, not suitable for going out or visiting friends. I received obituaries from 2 old friends today 3 years ago. I just attended their wedding due to some sadness and health reasons. I didn't attend the funeral. I'm actually worried, the 2 of them are using me to refine the ghost technique. Old friends who are nearing the end of their lives are becoming even crazier. July 10, 1978, sunny, not suitable for visiting friends. I sent a letter but received no response, losing the message of my last friend in the world. Of course, I believe there are still similar species in the world. The old generation is passing away, and new practitioners are born. There is something called a population census in this country, and every time there is a census, a group of centenarians are missing. There is an academic viewpoint that many elderly people over 100 years old are caused by false information due to an inadequate household registration system. I believe that if those centenarians were to meet, it wouldn't be a good thing. There are countless anomalies mixed in. This country recently announced the start of its 4th population census. Perhaps this year, perhaps next year, there will be another wave of centenarians disappearing. Due to this policy and the popularization of household registration, I have to change my identity every once in a while. My original identity can no longer be used. My physical body can no longer be used. I have chosen a brand new identity. A young man who only scored 31 points in math in the middle school entrance examination, but aspires to make big money, make a fortune, and lead all working people in the world towards a happy life of 996. It seems like my surname is Ma. On January 6, 1980, it was cloudy and windy, and there might be a rainstorm in the afternoon. It was not suitable for reincarnation. There is a problem with reincarnation. I can only stay awake for a short time. The vitality of heaven and earth in this world has become stronger again, and the impurities have not subsided, but have become more and more intense. The growth rate of miscellaneous energy is at least 50 times faster than that of the elemental energy of heaven and earth. There are already people who naturally awaken their extraordinary abilities without any cultivation, which is outrageous. There were no such people in ancient times. Well, in ancient times, there were such beings. The so-called innate gods and humans, as well as various rare birds and beasts, did not require cultivation and naturally possessed various magical powers. I haven't experienced that era before. I'm only a few hundred years old, and that was tens of thousands of years ago. I am able to use some ancient spells, and there are also 2 new techniques that have broken through the 3rd level of cultivation. This progress is not enough to extend lifespan. We still need to reincarnate. On December 25, 1980, there was still a rainstorm, so it was appropriate to reincarnate. Successfully reincarnated again. The last time I failed to reincarnate, I deeply remembered and changed the way I reincarnated. This time, I started with the embryo. The loss of reincarnation is too great. One must fall into a deep sleep, unable to awaken before the age of 10, and can only be an ordinary child. I am very certain that the spiritual energy on earth has revived. The impurities have also become so strong that they are terrifying. Many old friends should also come back. I won't have a diary for now. Who Juan walked out of the house with a garbage bag in her hand, not even glancing at it. With a gentle delivery, the garbage bag flew lightly towards the garbage bin across the street. The garbage bag disintegrates in the air, automatically separates dry and wet, and falls into different garbage bins. The accuracy is astonishing, and the strength is just right, perfectly in line with the regulations on the management of domestic waste that will only be issued more than 20 years later. This year is 1993. Hu Huan is 12 years old and enrolled in the first year of junior high school at Southeast Forestry University affiliated middle school. He is no different from his peers except for being a bit homesick. If there is any difference, it is that he is always troubled by inexplicable memory fragments in his mind. In these fragmented memories, he is a fox. Little male fox. That's all for the little fox. He still has memories of being frequently masturbated, his art style is not right, isn't a fox a cat? Being masturbated is all that matters. He often has to be forced to cosplay, from a well-studied scholar, a handsome book boy, a charming writer, to an investment bank tycoon, a professional manager, an English teacher, a wealthy citizen. Everything. This Nima is quite outrageous. Gray is often outrageous. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Early Doomsday. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Early Doomsday. This year is 1993. On January 1st of this year, Czechoslovakia officially split into Czechoslovakia and Slovakia. The tax collection and administration law of the People's Republic of China has officially come into effect. Hong Kong Starlight Records Company was established. Zhejiang TV Xinjiang Channel has officially started broadcasting. CCTV.2 is positioned as a comprehensive channel focused on economy, with the channel name Economy Comprehensive Channel. Shenzhen revokes Baoan County and establishes Baoan District in Longgang District. All of this has nothing to do with Hu Huan, a junior high school student. The most worrying thing for him now is to suspect that he is sick or seriously mentally ill. Mental illness is a disease that most people cannot cure once they have it, which is very frustrating. Apart from her mind, Hu Huan always has various inexplicable memory fragments, and recently she often senses someone or something calling out to her. It looks like he has a long-lost child bride. Hu Huan threw away the garbage and inserted her hands into her pants, feeling a bit confused. His father is a gambler, the kind of gambler who runs a casino. My mother is an atypical little girl. When she was young, she could wield a knife to fight two burly men, and even make them covered in blood, chasing them from the street to the end of the street. Any child born into such a chaotic family is a natural tragedy, let alone a teenager who is only 12 years old and suspects he has a mental illness. How can future life be organized? In this era of China, the internet has not yet become widespread, internet cafes have not yet emerged, and electronic game halls are the mainstream of civilian children's entertainment. However, there is no such pocket money for him at home. Hu Huan doesn't have the money to play games, but she doesn't want to go home either. Isn't this Huan Huan? What? Do you want to find some fun to play with? Three young people in their 20s, dressed in flowing clothes, appeared particularly enthusiastic when they saw Hu Huan. Hu Huan turned around and left, he didn't want to get involved with these guys. These three young people often haunt the casino at home and are not typical good people. The young man led by Hu Huan didn't want to talk to them and blew a loud whistle, appearing somewhat proud. He didn't know what he was proud of, but felt that it was quite a face-saving thing to make Hu Huan turn around and run away. Huan Huan, don't leave. That's right, play with your buddies. Take you to see the world of flowers and flowers. Amidst the commotion of three young people, Hu Huan walked faster. He detested the nickname Huan Huan, and no one would like a nickname that sounded like a dog's name. He didn't go far when he was stopped by 7 or 8 high school students. The leader was tall and strong, with flesh on his cheeks and a grim smile on his face, asking, "Where is Brother Daolin talking to you? Why are you so unruly?" The faces of the three young people were like they had opened a dyeing vat and changed colors together. The leader shouted, "Little rabbit, don't do anything too much." Tall and strong, with flesh on his cheeks, a high school student thought it was encouragement for himself. With a proud smile, he said, "Brother Daolin is really angry." Before he could finish speaking, he heard a muffled sound and his plump body flew up. Before he fainted, the only thought in his mind was, "Why did Daolin hit me?" The young man named Daolin Guk kicked away a high school student who was blocking the way and cursed in a cold sweat, "Who are you from? How dare you block Huan Ji's road? Do you know that this half of the city belongs to Huan Ji's family? A few high school students were scolded in confusion. They really don't know who Hu Huan is. How could one imagine that under the leadership of their own boss, they flattered Lin Gu, the Taoist priest, but ended up flattering him correctly? Hu Huan ignored these people and instead quickened his pace. A few minutes later, he calmed down and found himself breaking into the factory area of an abandoned factory. This is a playground for nearby children. When I was a child, Hu Huan often came here to play, and at that time this factory was quite lively. Without any warning, countless strange memories suddenly popped up in Hu Huan's mind, and various fragmented images were crammed in one by one. It's like smashing a person's life into billions of pieces, randomly buying and selling, and this feeling is not good. Hu Huan's brain was pricked 300 to 600 times by a burning iron needle, and he crouched on the ground in pain. The memory fragments floating in my mind seemed to be related to a secret organization, with all kinds of strange people and monsters inside, which is very absurd and completely unimaginable. Sleeping slot. My illness is getting more and more frequent. I really need to see a doctor. I'll ask my mom for some money later. This piercing pain came and went quickly, and it only disappeared in a few minutes. Hu Huan endured the illness, took a breath, wiped the sweat off her forehead, and was about to stand up when she was attracted by something on the ground. It had been buried in the soil for an unknown amount of time, only revealing an amber shell. Hu Huan was curious for a moment and picked up a branch nearby. However, after a while, she dug out that thing. It is a palm-sized conch, but Hu Huan has never seen such a beautiful conch before. Its shell is also inlaid with many gold threads, making it a complete handicraft and not a natural creation at all. A thought came to Hu Huan's mind. I wonder if this thing can be sold for money. He immediately overturned this idea. This conch seems to have a wonderful sense of familiarity with him, like an old thing that has been used for a long time and has given birth to emotions. Forget it, there's no need to worry about selling money for everything. I'll keep this beautiful conch for fun. Hu Huan put the conch into her pocket and was about to find a place to stay until dinner time before returning home when the sky suddenly darkened not far away. It's like someone took some time and accelerated it dozens of times. The night, which was supposed to slowly darken and quietly arrive, spread at a visible speed and covered the entire abandoned factory in an instant. The strong black mist, initially as faint as smoke and water, immediately covered the sky and earth. This posture is not normal. The abandoned factory suddenly collapsed tenfold, covered in darkness, and the few children playing in the abandoned factory area disappeared, as if entering the end of the world. What's going on with this horse riding? In broad daylight, how could it be the end of the world? Didn't the book say that 1999 was the year? He picked up the conch, and within a few minutes, the whole world was pitch black and could no longer distinguish its direction. Hu Huan pinched the conch in her hand and instinctively put it into her pocket. She reached out and explored the ground, but couldn't find the branch just now. He hesitated for a moment, gave up trying again, and quietly lowered his body. This was the night fighting experience taught by his mother. Is it an earthquake or a rainstorm? Typhoon. Could it be that U.S. imperialism launched nuclear bombings or through chemical weapons? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Great Sage of Tian. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Great Sage of Tian. In the textbooks of the 1990s, there was indeed common knowledge on how to self-rescue in the face of nuclear bombing and chemical weapon attacks. However, those with a slightly scientific mind knew that when faced with such attacks, these knowledge were not effective. The pressure brought by the complete darkness made Hu Huan's whole body tense like a bow, making a warning posture. The pitch-black world is filled with indescribable pressure. It's like being betrayed by the whole world, making people feel inferior and insignificant. Hu Huan could even hear the sound of his own heartbeat, a slightly too rapid heartbeat, telling him how scared he was inside. Suddenly, Hu Huan's right hand swayed slightly in the distance, revealing a grayish-white. This grayish-white seems to have opened up some opportunity, and the whole world is beginning to transform into black and white. However, after a while, the whole world turned into a black and white world. At first, the surroundings were eerie deserts, but soon after, dark red plants grew wildly on the ground, including vines, trees, weeds, and strange flowers. A vine emerged from Hu Huan's feet, winding and growing at an incredible speed, quickly climbing onto his body. This vine is like a living creature, with a greasy touch. Climbing on Hu Huan's body, the fine roots it produces pierced into her skin, slowly starting to suck blood. The unbearable feeling is unbearable. Hu Huan's scalp tingled, and she reached out and grabbed the vine, pulling hard. This vine couldn't stop rolling and struggling, and even emitted a terrifying cry. How could it keep talking? Hu Huan's strength grew stronger and stronger, and blood seeped out from the friction between her palm and the vine. She only wanted to pull this terrifying plant off her body, but it kept pulling on and on. The vine was incredibly resilient beyond imagination. The vines let out a piercing scream as they climbed tighter and tighter, with bodies constantly emerging from the soil and growing faster. They almost wrapped around Hu Huan's lower body and crazily climbed up her waist. Am I going to die? Hu Huan lost more and more blood, and his struggle became weaker and weaker. Just as he was feeling hopeless, a golden light shone in his pocket. The vines, shrouded in golden light, constantly chirped sharply, twisted and struggled, and even gave up sucking on Hu Huan. They released their tentacles and wanted to escape back to the ground, but were pulled out inch by a force. When it was completely pulled off the ground, Hu Huan was stunned. He never thought that a single vine could grow to several hundred meters long, with countless forks. This monstrous vine swings wildly in the golden light, resembling a monster from outer space. Jin Guang pulled out the vines completely and began to contract. Wrapped in the eerie vines, he let out a wheezing sound and withdrew into his pocket. Hu Huan took a deep breath, feeling relieved but also feeling a bit scared. Just now, it was really a matter of life and death, and she was almost eaten by the vampire vine. He reached out and pressed his pocket. Inside was a newly picked conch, which saved him and collected the strange vine that was sucking blood. Gradually fading away, the conch, whose radiance was converging, seemed to have no peculiarities at all, but Hu Huan knew that this thing must have had an extraordinary origin. Is this conch a legendary treasure? He couldn't understand at all what had happened. Why did you suddenly run from an abandoned factory to this eerie and terrifying wilderness? Is there such a bizarre plant? What exactly is this place? Hu Huan moved his body for a while. Although he lost a lot of blood, he was certain that his body had no sequelae and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Hu Huan didn't have time to balance this breath. A monkey with a head full of yellow hair, a sturdy figure, well-developed muscles, and a fierce face, exhaled black gas and walked out of the void on all fours. Hu Huan has never seen such a big monkey before. This yellow-haired giant monkey is over 5 meters tall, and it is still at a height of 4 feet on the ground. The old version of King Kong was released in 1933, but it was not introduced domestically. Even if it was introduced, Hu Huan would not be able to see it. He was not yet born at that time. As for the 2005 version, he had to grow up 8 years to see it, so Hu Huan couldn't blurt out the famous ID, King Kong. The thought that came to his mind was, is this the great sage of Tian? There is no other way. As a teenager in his generation, there is only one monkey in his life journey, and there is no other monkey's position. Although Hu Huan was naturally bold, facing such a fierce giant monkey, she couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva, try to squeeze out a smile, and say a very obvious seductive sentence. Great Saint! Have you eaten it? This fierce and ferocious monkey ignored Hu Huan's witty words, and the whole monkey soared into the air like a small mountain pressing down. Hu Huan instinctively tried her best to jump away from the side, and the yellow-haired giant monkey pounced in the air, but the strong wind in her pocket hit her face like a saw, much more violent than the vampire vine. Baoluo, Baoluo. Quickly take away this monster. Hu Huan held the conch high, but at this moment it didn't know if it was full and didn't react at all. Hu Huan and the yellow-haired giant monkey exchanged glances, and the eyes of this huge monster were full of violence and naked appetite. For a moment, Hu Huan's emotions plummeted to the bottom of despair. He's just an ordinary junior high school student, how could he possibly escape such a monster? Two people wearing Zhongshan suits and looking like cadres are sitting leisurely in the office drinking tea. One person is also reading a newspaper, while the other is holding a teacup, feeling lost in thought. Suddenly, both of them stood up at the same time, looking towards the direction of the abandoned factory with a look of horror on their faces. One of them couldn't help but shout, "Someone has broken into the closed area. Let Xiaoxi take a look, there is a seal of the great sage, so there can't be any trouble." A person immediately reached out and dialed the phone. In this era, not to mention mobile phones, BP phones have not yet become popular, and telephones are still ancient turntable landlines. He shouted into the microphone with a cautious expression, "There is a situation in the old factory area of Second Chemical. Let Xiaoxi take a look and transfer the happiness 125 to her. Efficiency is important, don't take the bus anymore." After hanging up the phone, the cadre-like person stared into the distance and said to his companions, "Has there been a new awakener?" His companion whispered, "The awakened are a precious force that the country urgently needs, and having one more is very important. If there are new awakened individuals, they must be absorbed into the organization as soon as possible. I just hope he doesn't get beaten to death by the great sage." Hu Huan and the yellow-haired giant monkey have been circling the wilderness for more than 10 times, every second in despair, every moment in life and death. He suddenly heard the sound of the engine and felt lucky in his heart. Without hesitation, he exerted all his strength and rushed towards the direction of the engine's sound. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The female knight riding the happy 125 motorcycle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The female knight riding the happy 125 motorcycle, a red and white happiness 125 motorcycle, drove arrogantly towards her, with a female knight wearing a short leather jacket on board. Her slender thighs made any girl jealous, and her temperament was even more imposing. Hu Huan just wanted to survive, not malicious enough to drag others into the water. He shouted desperately from a distance, "There's a monster behind me, don't drive over." After shouting this sentence, he felt that something was wrong. If the other person turned around and ran away, wouldn't he have no way to survive? He quickly added, "Help me." Sensing the terrifying spiritual waves on the yellow-haired giant monkey from afar, Yan Xiaoxi reached out and lightly grabbed his collar, pulling out a long spear. This long spear is over 3 meters long, not with a sharp-pointed tip, but with a sharp blade. The snowy blade has a very eerie eye pattern, and the sakura is surprisingly rare in plain white. I don't know how that short leather jacket that fits tightly against the skin could hide such a grown weapon. The slender fingers grabbed the barrel of the gun, and with a gentle shake, it was as if a bolt of lightning had struck. Yan Xiaoxi stepped on the seat of the motorcycle, lifted it out of the air, pointed his long gun diagonally, with a cold and stunning feeling. She is going to take action to save someone. The yellow-haired monkey let out a roar and rose into the air. It seemed to have only combat instincts and had no skill changes at all. Yan Xiaoxi didn't even dodge the Lingsu thunderbolt spear, but he endured it and was hit by a monkey head with a single shot. The plain white long spear hit the yellow-haired giant monkey, and on the snowy blade of the spear, a very eerie gaze quietly opened up. A strange force was exerted on the blade, and the head of the yellow-haired giant monkey was blasted. Hu Huan was overjoyed, but Yan Xiaoxi breathed a sigh of relief and secretly exclaimed, "It's not a great saint, it's just an ordinary demon. This child has good luck, otherwise I would have had to run for my life." Yan Xiaoxi fell to the ground, put the plain white spear back into her collar, pulled one hand over Hu Huan, and grabbed the Happiness 125 motorcycle that was still running towards her. She lightly twisted the handle and shook its tail in place. Before Hu Huan could fully comprehend, she had already sat in the back seat of the Happiness 125 motorcycle. Yan Xiaoxi whispered, "Hold on to me." Hu Huan instinctively hugged the spirited female knight with a slender waist, while looking back. He had just breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the headless yellow-haired monkey rushing out of the darkness, with a stronger black aura emanating from its body. The headless yellow-haired giant monkey is much scarier than when it has a head. Capcom, a Japanese company, did not release the famous single-player game Resident Evil until 1996. In 1993, the theme of zombies had not yet gained worldwide influence. Hu Huan's imagination was not enough for him to conceive the setting of a zombie giant monkey, but he still had fear in his heart and hugged Yan Xiaoxi's slender waist even tighter. The headless yellow-haired giant monkey was extremely violent, with its head exploding. It seemed unaffected and its four claws flipped, closely following behind Happiness 125. Why is this guy brainless? Can he still keep an eye on us? Not to mention sight, even hearing and smell should be gone. Can it still rely on monkey fur to sense the air? Hu Huan couldn't figure out what to say. This dead monkey, lacking a brain, how could it still be as agile as a dragon and have clear ears and eyes? "We're going out," Yan Xiaoxi whispered. Hu Huan didn't react, but the next second, he felt the afterglow of the evening sun shining on his face. The black and white world gradually took on color, and the noisy sounds once again enveloped my ears. The bustling streets and high-rise buildings of the city replaced the eerie wilderness, with pedestrians and vehicles bustling. Return to the mortal world. They appeared on a road outside the factory, with Hu Huan sitting in the back seat of the Happiness 125 motorcycle, still holding her hands tightly, saving her female knight with a weak and boneless waist. What exactly is going on here? Did I hit a ghost? At this moment, the roar of the engine suddenly disappeared. Yan Xiaoxi released the gas pedal, rested one foot on the ground, stopped, opened the helmet mask, and said, "New Awakener." What is the Awakener? Someone will explain to you later. Are you still a primary school student? First grade. Hu Huan instinctively straightened her chest. Yan Xiaoxi chuckled lightly, closed her helmet, and restarted the motorcycle. Hu Huan was a bit stunned. He definitely didn't forget to ask, "Where are you taking yourself, because this big sister is really beautiful." He just wants to figure it out. What exactly happened today? This female knight clearly knows many things. Yan Xiaoxi drove her motorcycle at full speed and whispered, "You are really lucky. Fortunately, we only encountered ordinary monsters with less than 1% of the power of the Great Sage. Otherwise, you would be finished." The Great Sage. That yellow-haired giant monkey. It's not that, the Great Sage is still sleeping. The female knight ignored the traffic rules and ran 7 red lights in a row, driving into a courtyard that had been around for quite some time. There was already a team of soldiers in the courtyard, armed with weapons and ready for battle. When they saw the female knight bringing back Hu Huan, both of them dressed in Zhongshan suits and resembling cadres showed signs of joy. One of them called out, "Didn't you disturb the Great Sage?" The female knight took off her helmet, her long hair flying high, and exclaimed with a cool voice, "No. A child awakened and fell into the shadow of all things, and I brought him back." Hu Huan rode on a motorcycle and asked blankly, "What is the shadow of all things?" A cadre-looking person chuckled and said, "It's not convenient to go into detail here. Let's go to the small conference room and explain to you." Hu Huan took a deep breath and flipped off the motorcycle. The female knight lost the key to the motorcycle to a warrior and held Hu Huan's hand, saying, "You don't have to be afraid, we belong to the government department." "What's your name?" "Hu Huan." "My name is Yan Xiaoxi." You can call me Xiaoxi in the future. Miss Xiaoxi. Do we need to see each other frequently in the future? Yeah. From now on, you will be our comrade. Comrades. What is a comrade? Comrades are comrades. What? Hu Huan was taken by Yan Xiaoxi to an office building in this courtyard, and went up to a conference room on the second floor. She sat down on a rare leather sofa in this era, holding tea and feeling a bit dazed. Two people wearing Zhongshan suits and looking like cadres followed in with a smile, and one introduced himself, Hu Huan, don't be nervous. My surname is Li, and I am Li Yenzong, the person in charge here. Our department is a special department dedicated to handling closed areas and awakened individuals. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Shadow of All Things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Shadow of All Things. Hu Huan was completely confused when he heard this. He didn't think he had any connection with the special department. He put down the tea and accidentally touched the conch in his pocket. His emotions calmed down inexplicably and he whispered, "Can you explain it to me from the beginning? I am very confused now." Li Yenzong chuckled and said, "This kind of thing is a long story. Let me start from scratch. It's okay if you're still young and don't understand. We'll teach you slowly in the future." Hu Huan was increasingly full of doubts, whether it was Yan Xiaoxi or Li Yenzong. The meaning behind the words seemed that he would have to deal with these people more often in the future. How could this be possible? He is still a student. Junior high school students. Li Yenzong coughed and said, "Above our normal world, there is another layer of world that we call the shadow of all things. This layer of world and the real world have intricate connections, but they are extremely twisted and eerie. Tall buildings in the real world may be just a grain of sand in the shadow of all things. A person in the real world may just be an ant in the shadow of all things. The real world ocean may just be a puddle in the shadow of all things. The mountains and rivers of the real world may just be an inconspicuous mound in the shadow of all things. A small grassland in a city in the real world may be a primitive forest in the shadow of all things. Everything in the real world will be distorted and indistinguishable in this layer of the world. The shadow of all things is very dangerous, and ordinary people cannot detect it at all, and there is no scientific means to observe it. Only the awakened can perceive the existence of the shadow of all things and enter freely. What is the awakened one? The awakened one is someone like you who suddenly gains some magical power. I don't seem to have much strength." Li Yenzong smiled and said, "It's okay, we'll give you a test later. Teaching you how to use the power of awakening is also one of the responsibilities of our department." He gave Yan Xiaoxi a wink, and the girl with long hair walked out of the conference room. After a while, she pushed in a TV. It's not accurate to say it's a TV. Apart from the screen resembling a TV, there are countless complex devices and various cables, all like a mess. In 1993, Intel launched the Pentium chip, but most Chinese children of this era still didn't know what a computer was. In this era, even avant-garde individuals who have some knowledge of computers cannot distinguish between the main unit and the monitor, and there are still many people who are responsible for computing. This set of computers responsible for testing is certainly not the latest model. The CPU is still the 8088 microprocessor produced more than 10 years ago, which is an ancient and outrageous one. Yan Xiaoxi powered on this device, gesturing for Hu Huan to relax, wrapped bandages like blood pressure monitors around his wrists and ankles, and even put a cover on his head. Hu Huan did not resist, and he was also curious about what these people wanted to do. Li Yenzong and another person who had never spoken nervously stared at the screen. After a while, countless data were displayed on the screen. Li Yenzong exclaimed with a hint of excitement, "My mental strength is normal, and no special organs have been found in my body. My muscle density is 1.3 times that of an average person. The awakening direction is the body, with a awakening rate of 12.8%. Great. We need this type of warrior awakener. Another person whispered, we'll report it to the organization and see if there are any objections from the higher-ups. Li Yenzong briefly chatted with him and said to Hu Huan with a smile, which school are you from? In a few days, I will transfer you to another school. From now on, you will have to study at a special school. Southeast Forestry University affiliated middle school junior high school. I don't want to drop out or attend a special school. Hu Huan is very sensitive to special schools because his mother almost went there, which is called a juvenile detention center. Li Yenzong chuckled and said, it's okay, you can keep your original enrollment. The new school not only teaches you knowledge, but also trains you on how to master the power within your body. You can just treat it as an extracurricular class. Our department's directly affiliated junior high schools are free of tuition fees, with a 30-point bonus for high school entrance exams, and there are also dozens of universities direct trains that allow students to enter universities without taking exams. Hu Huan was immediately tempted. He hesitated for a moment and asked in a low voice, which universities can we take the exam for? Li Yenzong said in a soft tone, all military and police universities have links with our department, and some central ministries universities also have special recruitment quotas. You don't have to worry about your future prospects. Li Yenzong has extensive experience in handling such matters. Hu Huan is just an ordinary junior high school student, and his careful thinking cannot be concealed from an old fox like Li Yenzong. In just a few words, he can dispel the worries in the young man's heart. Li Yenzong gave Yan Xiaoxi a wink, and Yan Xiaoxi smiled and said, you probably haven't finished your meal yet, have you? Sister will take you to our cafeteria. We have stewed pig hands tonight. Hu Huan immediately followed up without hesitation when he heard about stewed pig hands. He only had cold rice when he came home, and his mother didn't know how to cook at all. She just fooled him with 3 meals a day. How could he make stewed pig hands for him? Even the hands of a live pig don't have to bite. After Hu Huan left, Li Yenzong said to his colleagues, this child has a simple temperament and can be vigorously cultivated. The other person sighed and said, this big kid is going to face a cruel war, which is also a challenge for him. After a moment of silence, Li Yenzong whispered, there's no way. Everything is for the country, for the people. Those martyrs, who were also at this age, sacrificed their heads and shed their blood. The cafeteria of this strange department does indeed have pig hands. Although it's just a simple 4-dish soup, there are 2 meat dishes, and the other 2 vegetarian dishes are also not something Hu Huan can eat on a regular basis. It's not that it's expensive, but his mother doesn't know how to do it. One is sauce eggplant, and the other is stir-fried 3 shreds. Hu Huan has never used the iron food plate in the canteen of such a unit. The iron food plate is divided into several compartments. He first filled it with stewed pig hands and another dish of braised pork belly with meat and vegetable oil, and then covered the rice with a spoonful of pickled eggplant and a spoonful of fried 3 shreds. As for the bowl of shredded radish soup, Hu Huan didn't even make it. He didn't like carrots, whether it was white radish, green radish, red radish, or carrots. He didn't like anything. Yan Xiaoxi looked in front of Hu Huan, looking like a mountain full of food. She couldn't help but chuckle lightly. She didn't make much food, except for 2 vegetarian dishes each with a spoonful, and also served a bowl of soup. She didn't even ask for meat dishes, less than 1/5 of Hu Huan's. 2 people sat down, and a boy who was at most 1 or 2 years older than Hu Huan, hanging Erlang's crotch, also walked into the cafeteria. He saw Hu Huan's unfamiliar face and was slightly surprised. He said to Yan Xiaoxi, new here. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Job Rank Cycle Table. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Job Rank Cycle Table. Hu Huan was indulging in a feast, her mouth full of food, and she didn't have time to pay attention to the idle people. Yan Xiaoxi clearly knew him very well and nodded in response, the awakener I brought back from the old factory of the second chemical industry is 1 year younger than you and is in the first year of junior high school. The big boy looked at him with great interest for a while and asked in a low voice, "Have you passed the test?" Yan Xiaoxi replied, "I have tested it, my mental strength is normal, and no special organs have been found in my body. My muscle density is 1.3 times that of an average person, and my awakening direction is my body. My awakening rate is 12.8%. The young man's eyes lit up and he blurted out, "Aren't you a born thug?" He approached with a smile on his face and started talking nonsense, saying, "I'm Wang Song, the future map master. When we have time, let's go on a mission together. You may not know how advantageous it is to have a map master in the team. Not only can you easily find rich spoils of war, but you can also avoid most dangers. When running for your life, it is even more helpful." Yan Xiaoxi couldn't help but chuckle and interjected, "The last sentence is the truth. You don't have to believe the rest, Hu Huan." Wang Song explained in a casual tone, "When I officially advance to become a map master, I don't know how convenient it is to enter and exit the shadow of all things. Only I can always find the entrance and exit of the shadow of all things." Hu Huan remembered the eerie world and still felt lingering palpitations. He struggled to swallow what was in his mouth and asked, "Do the shadows of all things have an entrance and an exit?" Wang Song put a piece of fat and thin braised pork belly into his mouth, chewed it slowly, and said indistinctly, "Of course. The overlap between the shadow of all things and the real world is not high, and most places are very safe, with only a few places. The shadow of all things has a particularly serious impact on reality, and we call that place a closed area. For example, the old factory area of the second chemical industry." Yan Xiaoxi extended his foot and kicked Wang Song's calf. This guy suddenly realized something and didn't dare to speak anymore. "Let's work hard." Hu Huan nibbled on the stewed pig's hand and muttered to herself, "It seems that many things are still secrets. It's not convenient to tell an outsider about them. Fortunately, I'm not very interested in these things either." Hu Huan's appetite is the normal level of his peers, but he has eaten all the food on the iron plate, which is 5 times more than his usual appetite, and still feels unsatisfied. He stared at the empty iron food plate and froze for a moment. What kind of shadow of all things do I enter? After coming out, my body seems to be a bit different, even my appetite has become so large. Do I want to become a monster? Hu Huan had a hearty meal just now, but now she is worried. Wang Song doesn't eat slowly either. He doesn't have as much food as Hu Huan, so he's almost finished eating now. Wang Song couldn't help but laugh when he saw Hu Huan in a daze and said, "The food in the department cafeteria is available in unlimited quantities. Don't be polite to the government. These are all benefits we have worked hard to obtain." Hu Huan replied in a daze, "I'm not embarrassed, I'm afraid of being stretched to death, and I've eaten a bit too much." Yan Xiaoxi was amused by this sentence, and a mouthful of shredded radish soup sprayed out, leaving Wang Song with a face full of bad luck. Wang Song helplessly found a cloth to wipe his face and replied, "You are the awakener of the body. You guys have such a big appetite. Just eat it, don't be afraid." What is a physical awakener? You call yourself a map master, and what is a map master? Are you similar to several levels of fitters in a factory? Hu Huan had been holding back these questions for a long time and took the opportunity to ask them. Yan Xiaoxi almost sprayed Wang Song's face again. She tried hard to hold back her smile, her eyes full of teasing. Wang Song chuckled and said, "We used to be called comrades, but now, like foreign countries, we are called awakeners or professionals. The awakened is a 0 rank, only counted as a reserve, not yet a formal professional. Professionals have become increasingly powerful from level 1 to level 6, but I haven't heard of any country having level 6 professionals yet, and there are only 3 levels 5 in the world. I heard from the above that a foreign country has created a thing called the career level periodic table, which categorizes all professions into 7 levels and 15 tribes. Currently, there are a total of 117 professions counted. These high-end research achievements are regarded as precious by foreign devils. We haven't obtained them yet, so we can only study them ourselves. At present, our Qianlong army only has 3 complete professional clans, so unless the awakening direction is really inappropriate, there are only 3 paths to choose from. If you have normal mental strength and no special organs found in your body, you cannot become a professional of the natural and 5-element clans. The muscle density is 1.3 times that of the average person, and the awakening direction is the body. In several Western countries, there are also giant races to choose from, while in the Qianlong army, only warriors can be chosen. The thug is a first-class profession in the warrior clan. Job level periodic table. What are the 117 professions in the 7th level, 15 clans, and 117 professions? What are all these things? Hu Huan was even more confused. Just as he was about to ask, he heard a cold voice coming from behind his head. Wang Song. This child has not been transferred to our department yet. According to the confidentiality regulations, you have said so much and can now go to the detention room. Hu Huan turned back in shock, completely unaware of anyone behind him. Behind him, at some point, stood a girl in an old military uniform. She had a slender figure, and her spacious old military uniform couldn't conceal her delicate curves. The girl wore 2 fried dough twists braids and a pair of black framed glasses on her face. She was dressed very old and had no expression on her plain face, but she was really beautiful. Yan Xiaoxi is already a very rare beauty, this girl is even more beautiful than Yan Xiaoxi. Especially the cold and aloof demeanor on her body accentuated her reluctance to indulge in worldly pleasures, even her old military uniform couldn't conceal her indescribable immortal aura. Wang Song immediately closed his mouth and gave Hu Huan a glance. Yan Xiaoxi made a move and said to the new girl, "He is Hu Huan, a new awakener I brought back from the old factory of second chemical. I just tested him and found that his mental strength is normal. No special organs were found in his body, and his muscle density is 1.3 times that of an average person. His awakening direction is physical, and his awakening rate is 12.8%. This is Lu Yunyun. Our only life clan professional here, second-order dark gourmet." Lu Yunyun pushed his black-framed glasses and whispered, "Are you the awakeners in the warrior's direction?" Yan Xiaoxi replied, "Yes." After fixing his gaze for a while, Lu Yunyun said to Hu Huan, "You have great potential." After saying this, she went to fetch the iron food plate. Hu Huan didn't understand whether her statement, "very promising," was a compliment or a satire. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. New Teachers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. New Teachers. Lu Yunyun had a temperament of not entering, and Hu Huan didn't want to bother himself. He whispered to Yan Xiaoxi, "I'm going home." After thinking for a moment, Yan Xiaoxi said, "I'll ask someone to accompany you back and also tell your parents." Hu Huan was about to say no more when he saw Li Yenzong rushing over, followed by a chubby middle-aged man who was constantly wiping his sweat and shouting, "Leaderly, wait for me." Li Yenzong pointed to Hu Huan and said to the fat middle-aged man, "Tomorrow we will move his school registration and registered residence registration." Hu Huan protested, "Didn't you say you could keep your original student status?" Hu Huan is just a junior high school student. Seeing so many adults, he feels a bit at a loss. In fact, he wants to refuse this matter more, but the young man also understands from the bottom of his heart that he may not be able to refuse. Li Yenzong said with a smile, "Then keep his original school registration, but his registered residence needs to be changed." Li Yenzong smiled and said to Hu Huan, "You don't have to worry about these things, we will help you with everything." The chubby middle-aged man wiped his sweat, unable to speak for a moment. Finally, he found the opportunity and whispered, "Leader Li. I have already inquired about this child's family. His father runs a black casino, and his mother has no job. He glanced at Hu Huan and quietly changed his way of saying, "You're also unemployed." Li Yenzong immediately understood, pondered for a while, and whispered, "Then don't let Hu Huan go back. His family's contact should be brought to the attention of the local police station. As for school and registered residence registration, we have to bother Director Chen." The chubby middle-aged man wiped his sweat and sneered, "No trouble, no trouble. I'll get this done early tomorrow morning." Hu Huan became anxious as she listened and shouted, "I want to go home. Let me go home." Li Yenzong smiled slightly and said, "If you don't go home, I can make the decision and give you a game console." "Game console? Then I have no problem." Li Yenzong smiled and said to Yen Xiaoxi, "Take Hu Huan to the dormitory building and arrange it next door to you." Hu Huan was a little nervous and asked in a low voice, "Can't I even go home in the future?" Li Yenzong chuckled and said, "No one restricts your freedom. We are just trying to be on the safe side and don't want to have any conflicts with your family." Yen Xiaoxi placed her hand on Hu Huan's shoulder and whispered, "Let's go get the game console first." This sentence is more effective than anything else. Hu Huan really forgot most of her doubts and was gently pushed by Yen Xiaoxi's shoulder before leaving the cafeteria with her. Li Yenzong rubbed his brow and asked Director Chen a few words, breathed a sigh of relief, and said, "I didn't expect this child to come from such a family and work hard to study. It's really not easy." Director Chen dared not say much, but could only smile and nod repeatedly, answering, "This child is really not easy. He is a good candidate for college entrance exams." Lu Yunyun brought a plate of food and walked over, saying to Li Yenzong, "Li team, I want to take this child." Li Yenzong was slightly surprised and asked, "Why do you suddenly want to become a new instructor?" "Yes, foodies and thugs are the most suitable combination, so let's leave Hu Huan to you. I'll tell Xiaoxi later, she probably doesn't have any objections." Although the first generation of PS was officially announced in 1993, it was still not available in the cabinet market. Hu Huan received a Nintendo-produced SFC and more than a dozen game cartridges. Wang Song, who quietly followed, said with envy on his face, "It's the latest Super Nintendo. What I received was the Atari released 10 years ago, and the game is not fun at all." Yen Xiaoxi replied, "You play for at least 10 hours every day." Wang Song retorted, "Where is it? I can play for 7 or 8 hours at most, and I have to train every day." At this moment, Hu Huan just wants to find a place to have fun and play games. He doesn't usually have access to such high-end electronic products. Every teenager at this age has an extraordinary obsession with gaming consoles. Even decades later, on some social networking sites, women will still question, "Why are gaming opportunities more fun than me in the eyes of my boyfriend?" Yen Xiaoxi ignored Wang Song and took Hu Huan to the last 7-story building in this courtyard. This building looks like a bunker, surpassing ordinary buildings. It is made of reinforced concrete and has no painting. The windows are very small and round. "Does this place look like a prison?" Wang Song said with a mysterious expression on his face, and Hu Huan couldn't help but nod and replied, "It seems." Hu Huan really felt that this strange building was a bit like a prison, even though he had never seen anything like a prison. Yen Xiaoxi scolded, "Don't speak recklessly. This is our dormitory. Including you, there are now 7 people moving in. We will all be teammates in the future. If you have anything, you can come to me or find Sister Lu. Wang Song, please don't teach Xiao Hu to behave badly. If you speak recklessly, I'll give you a report. I'll keep you locked up for a few days." Wang Song chuckled and didn't care about her threat at all. Obviously, Yen Xiaoxi wouldn't really report anything. She led Hu Huan into this slightly peculiar building. This dormitory building is square and has a curved interior. In the center of the building is a courtyard that leads directly to the roof, which is covered with transparent glass and has much better lighting than the outside. Yen Xiaoxi introduced, the first floor here is the training ground. Except for Sister Yun Yun, we all live on the second floor. You can also choose a room on the second floor. Hu Huan felt something was wrong and asked in a low voice, do I have to choose? Do I have to live here? Yen Xiaoxi sighed and said, all awakened individuals will be recruited by the country, either to join the Qianlong army or be called over by the Kunlun Research Institute. However, the treatment there is quite complicated, and many awakened individuals are experimental subjects. Wang Song couldn't help but interject and say, those who are obedient will recruit the Qianlong army to serve the country, while those who are disobedient will be sent to the Kunlun Research Institute to dedicate themselves to scientific research. Do you understand that? Yen Xiaoxi rarely interrupted this guy, obviously she was unwilling to refute what Wang Song said this time. Do you have to slice and do research if you don't listen? In this era, the popularity of extraterrestrial beings and Qigong has just passed, and there is still a lingering charm of the tale. Even middle school students like Hu Huan have heard of this statement through slicing research. He was shocked and immediately dared not speak. There are 5 rooms on the second floor with room signs hanging on the left side, including Yen Xiaoxi, Wang Song, and 3 names. Wan Yong, Su Che, and Gong Shui. After hesitating for a moment, Hu Huan whispered, I want to switch to another layer. Yen Xiaoxi was somewhat surprised and advised, everyone is on the same floor, so it's more convenient to take care of each other. Wang Song also interjected, how desolate you are on your own. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Beginner Gamers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Beginner Gamers. As soon as Wang Song finished speaking, he heard a cold voice, soft but unquestionable, saying, Hu Huan will live on the 5th floor in the future, and I will be with him. I have already reported to Team Li, and from now on I will be his instructor. Miss Yun Yun. Yen Xiaoxi and Wang Song were both very surprised. They couldn't believe that Lu Yunyun, who has always disliked communication and has always been on his own, would take the initiative to ask Hu Huan to become a new instructor. Hu Huan still didn't feel the presence of Lu Yunyun. He didn't know how, but he was slightly afraid of this beautiful old girl with 2 fried dough twists braids and black frame glasses. A fear as if encountering a natural enemy. He protested in a low voice, I think the 3rd floor is also pretty good. Lu Yunyun reached out and grabbed Hu Huan's arm, saying without a doubt, stay across from me. With just a casual tug, Lu Yunyun couldn't help but stumble and be pulled up the stairs together. Yen Xiaoxi and Wang Song exchanged a glance, but both of them were sensible and didn't follow suit. They each went to do their own business. This strange dormitory was built not long ago and there was no elevator at all, so the 2 of them climbed stairs one by one until they reached the 5th floor. The 1st floor is the training ground, the 2nd floor is occupied by 5 people, and the 3rd and 4th floors are completely empty, but they are still clean, obviously cleaned every day. The 6th and 7th floors are also empty, and Lu Yunyun lives alone on the 5th floor, which is inherently eerie. Hu Huan secretly glanced at Lu Yunyun's beautiful face, which had never applied any cosmetics but still had impeccable delicate features, and inexplicably had a chill. Yunyun looks harmless to humans and animals, why am I so afraid of her? It seems that others are also a bit afraid of her. The house in the 4 corners is the largest. If you like to live more spacious, choose the 4 corners. The other rooms are the same and there is no difference. Hu Huan was pulled up the 5th floor by Lu Yunyun and saw the room in the southeast corner with Lu Yunyun's doorplate hanging. Without hesitation, he pointed to the northwest corner and said, I'll choose that one. Lu Yunyun still held onto Hu Huan's arm tightly and led him to the dormitory in the northwest corner. He pushed the door and it opened, but the room was not locked. The house in this dormitory is very spacious, covering a total area of 60.70 square meters. It has an independent bathroom, a single pine bed, an old-fashioned writing desk, 5 or 6 chairs, a square table, and a vintage pine cabinet with a 21-inch color TV on top. In this era, an ordinary family with a small house of over 20 square meters is considered a very good family, and most families of a few may not necessarily have a residence of 60 or 70 square meters. Not to mention, a house of 60 or 70 square meters is just one room, and it can no longer be described as spacious. It can be called spacious. On the 2 outer walls, there are 7 or 8 circular windows, and there is also a small window facing inside the building, but these windows are all sealed and not a single one can be opened. When it was built, it was a sealed window without the function of opening. Hu Huan noticed the strangeness of these windows and couldn't help but feel a slight abnormality. Before he could think more, he was interrupted by Lu Yunyun's thoughts. Lu Yunyun whispered, "There are bedding in the cabinet that I washed a few days ago and it's quite clean. Let's take a break today, and tomorrow I'll tell you some common knowledge about the awakened." Hu Huan nodded repeatedly, his gaze already drawn to the TV. He put down his game console and began an exciting unpacking. About 20 years later, unboxing various products, especially electronic products, became popular on various short video platforms, giving birth to dozens of technology anchors with hundreds of thousands or even millions of fans. However, they probably didn't have the opportunity to unbox a Nintendo-produced SFC in 1993. Although the era may not be sufficient, the joy of unboxing does not diminish in any way. Hu Huan unpacked the game console and game cartridges, and arranged them in the room. The floor was filled with a special sense of satisfaction, giving people a sense of happiness that filled their bodies and minds. Hu Huan rubbed his hands and spun around the TV a few times, intending to connect the game console he had received. He had never done this before, and it took him more than 10 minutes, but he still couldn't figure it out. He watched as various cable heads also grew larger. When Hu Huan unpacked, Lu Yunyun quietly watched as he was busy and didn't say anything else. But now he whispered, "I'll teach you." If she had spoken earlier, Hu Huan might not have had the patience to listen, but now she listens more attentively than in class, following Lu Yunyun's guidance and slowly connecting the game console and TV. When he turned on both the TV and game console, and saw the optional game screen, he couldn't help but feel satisfied and cheered loudly. Lu Yunyun smiled lightly, like a blooming flower, so beautiful that it could compete with the morning sunshine. However, Hu Huan didn't even look back, and her attention was completely drawn to the game screen. She didn't care either. She looked at the boy who had already started playing games in high spirits and covered his mouth before quietly exiting the room. Hu Huan doesn't care whether he goes back home or not, he doesn't have much fun going back. Dad doesn't know where to hang out, but 9 out of 10, Mom goes out to play mahjong with people all night. There is a game console here to play, and that's a temporary paradise. Hu Huan had a drunken expression on his face and played the game for over 2 hours. Despite the rough graphics of this era's games, the gameplay was impeccable. I don't know how many players around the world are addicted to it and squander their youth without any warning, accompanied by intense stabbing pain, countless fragmented images pop out, and countless strange memories bombard the mind, tormenting people like torture, making them feel unbearable. Hu Huan threw down the game console controller, threw herself on the bed, buried her face in the quilt, and let out a low growl. This piercing pain comes and goes quickly. After more than 10 seconds, Hu Huan was in a cold sweat all over her body, as if she had been taken out of a water tank. After enduring the familiar excruciating pain, Hu Huan gasped for breath for a while, trembling as she pulled out the beautiful conch from her pocket and held it in her hand, lost in thought. The memory that inexplicably emerged from my mind this time is still broken as usual, only a small complete segment related to this little thing, which is a very mysterious spell. Let's call it a spell for now. Hu Huan held the miraculous conch in her hand, unable to resist her curiosity, and softly recited it. This passage has a strange pronunciation and goes against many grammar common sense. Even if it were a different CCTV announcer, he might not be able to pronounce it fluently, but he could recite it without any stuttering, flowing smoothly. Next second. Hu Huan's body is like a dream, like a fantasy, like a bubble, like a shadow, like dew, like electricity turning emptiness into nothingness. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Little Snail Cave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Little Snail Cave, where is this? Hu Huan lay comfortably on an antique sofa with at least a few hundred years of history, with a very elegant posture, as if he had been here all along. In front of him was a very antique oak desk with dozens of drawers. There are several things placed on this desk, including a half-lit cigar with delicately outlined elephants marked on it. There are also hammer-patterned glass cups filled with light yellow wine, as well as several exaggerated and stimulating novels, such as The Woman Leading the Family, The Woman Boss, The Woman Chief, and The Female Special Police, all authored by Sherry. On the desk, in the most prominent place, there are two cards. One depicts a creepy vine that looks very familiar, while the other depicts a ferocious monkey head that looks very familiar. Hu Huan couldn't have forgotten that these two monsters almost killed him. He picked up one of the cards and flipped it over to take a look. There were several lines of text on the back of the card. Vampire Vine, Normal, Attack Defense Life, A, Power, C, Speed, C, Power, 1. Vampire, which can absorb vitality and feed it back to the master, 2. Earth Movement, which can penetrate the ground and travel at a maximum speed of 70 km per hour. Hu Huan picked up another card and flipped it over to take a look. She drew the back of the terrifying monkey head card, which also had a few lines of text. The giant monkey head with a broken neck, Normal, Attack Defense Life, D, Power, C, Speed, D, Ability, None. Gently caressing these two cards, Hu Huan's mind came up with a pile of memory fragments, which pieced together into a fragment called The Art of the Gods of Things. These two cards are the God of Things cards created by God of Things, also known as the External God of Things token seal. Although the artifact in memory is only a fragment, it also explains its origin and operation. One of the 12 new methods of typing heavenly soldiers, capable of sealing off monsters and transforming them into divine powers. Memories kept rolling in her mind, and Hu Huan's emotions were like a roller coaster, fluctuating and unable to calm down. He instinctively picked up the hammer-patterned glass on the desk and took a sip of the wine in the glass. The long history and ancient history flooded into his heart one by one. Hu Huan glanced at the half-cigar and threw it, along with a few outdated best-selling books, into the nearby trash can. Next to half a cigar, there is a whole box of freshly opened cigars. There's really no need to save. As for those few outdated best-selling books, it doesn't fit his current mood, so he just threw it away. Hu Huan put down her wine glass and carefully looked around. This is a huge room with walls built with bluestone and raised over 20 meters high, covering an area of approximately 600 to 700 square meters. The room has no exits and is completely enclosed. In addition to the sofa where Hu Huan sat and the desk in front of her, the room was filled with bookshelves, leaning against one side of the stone wall, and there were 6 old black wooden boxes, all of which were firmly locked with antique brass locks. Next to the desk, there is also a rest area with a classical European-style court bed, a medieval-style cowhide sofa, and several exquisite reading chairs. In a corner separated by bookshelves and rest areas, there is also a very exaggerated huge round table. This round table is made of the same wood as the desk, and even has a design style that is very similar, revealing a rustic atmosphere. Hu Huan gave it a try, but he could only move around the desk. A little away from the desk, he was blocked by an invisible force, unable to leave the desk too far, and unable to pick up other things in the cave. Here. I feel so familiar. Young people who have been poisoned by online novels in later generations will immediately think of concepts such as dimensional space, carrying small caves with them, and storing treasures when they enter this realm. But now it's 1993, the pioneer of online novels, who wrote Fengzi Monogatari a year before their first intimate encounter, and it wasn't until 1997, 4 years later. Without the blessing of the environment, Hu Huan's brain power is not enough to jump out of these extremely avant-garde concepts. He was just amazed, and after being amazed, his brain went blank. Hu Huan didn't dare to stay in such a place for too long. He sat for a while and recited the very mysterious spell again. The next second, he reappeared in the dormitory. If it weren't for the alcohol in Hu Huan's mouth and 2 unique cards in his hand, he would never have believed the wonderful experience just now. Hu Huan reached out to touch her pocket, her face changed slightly, and the conch was gone. He searched his whole body and searched under the bed, but still couldn't find any trace of the strange conch. The young man was about to search carefully when he suddenly heard Lu Yunyan's voice outside the door and said, "Are you hungry?" Hu Huan agreed and hastily stuffed the 2 cards in her hand under the blanket, opening the door with some nervousness. Lu Yunyan stood outside the door and saw Hu Huan open the door. Suddenly, she smiled. When she was completely expressionless, she was like a fairy who doesn't eat the fireworks in the world. At this moment, with a gentle smile, it was as if spring was warm and flowers were blooming, and it was as if being swayed by the noon sun, making Hu Huan dizzy. "Here you are." Like a magician, Lu Yunyan took out 5 fragrant and hot meat buns from behind and handed them to Hu Huan. Before Hu Huan could come to his senses, Lu Yunyan lightly turned around and left without saying any extra words. Hu Huan almost instinctively stuffed a meat bun into her mouth, and the rich meat aroma and soup made her taste buds explode in an instant. Delicious. Meat buns can still be so fragrant. I used to really eat so many steamed buns for free. Hu Huan swallowed a meat bun in 3 bites, but unfortunately a piece of soup landed on his collar. He wiped it with his hand, lowered his head slightly, and saw a faint golden thread on his chest. Hu Huan touched his arms and found a palm-sized conch on his 5 fingers. Hu Huan knew very well that he had come up with this little thing from his own body. He gently let go, and the palm-sized conch quietly integrated into his chest. Everything seemed like it was made in heaven, without any trace of chiseling. What kind of change is this? At this moment, Hu Huan couldn't come up with the scene of treasure recognizing the owner, because the author who created this classic setting had not yet created a novel online. Although Hu Huan didn't understand what had happened and didn't have much imagination to explode, she was filled with joy and stuffed a second bun into her mouth. This palm-sized conch looks like a legendary treasure, and he doesn't want to lose it. In less than 2 or 3 minutes, all 5 meat buns had been killed, and the warmth in his stomach filled the young man's whole body with energy. He placed 2 cards on the old-fashioned writing desk and carefully examined them. End of this chapter.